Check 1, 2. Good evening, this is VK3. Oops, turn that off. Good evening, this is VK3 EKH, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, with the regular Friday night broadcast coming to you from the studios of VK3 CSJ in Narre Warren South. We're broadcasting on the prime frequency of 3541 kHz in the 80 metre amateur radio band, and also via the Melbourne television repeater VK3 RTV digital channel 1, which can be viewed on 145.5 MHz using a DVB-T2 down converter or set-top box, more appropriately, or can be viewed by the British Amateur Television Club BATC on the video streamer tab at the top of the page, and also via my YouTube channel, which just type in VK3CSJ and look for the live indication, and that should be working as well from what I can see. Welcome everybody on this 11th of August 2023. I trust everybody is in fair health and relatively happy, and staying warm. It's all fairly chilly out, isn't it? Anyway, one of the coldest winters that it's been a funny winter actually. It's not as if we've had lots of snowfall, but I've still felt the chill to the bone. So it's been a bit of an unusual one. And then everywhere else on the globe, it's super hot and fires everywhere. So it's a potential hot summer, guys. Anyway. We've got a few things tonight. I hope to be able to get through most of everything. There was a report from the Space Weather Woman, but unfortunately it's a few days old now. So she released the last report on Friday, but their Friday, and of course it was a little bit out of whack for us down here. So it was only went out to 4 days, and I thought, it's a bit old news. So we'll just go with the usual solar report for tonight. Anyway, all right. The Astronomical Society of Victoria, founded 1922, comprises well over 1,600 members scattered about Victoria, the state of Australia and overseas. Membership of the Society is open to anyone with an interest in astronomy. The Society's objectives are to encourage the study and practice of astronomy, and to disseminate the knowledge of the science, and to provide greater facilities for the study among its members. Monthly meetings are usually held on the second Wednesday of each month, except in January, with the latter being held on a Saturday night. Meetings start at 8 p.m. at the Mulia Hall, National Herbarium, at Buick Avenue, Melbourne, near the Melbourne Observatory, not too far from the Shrine of Remembrance. Parking is available in Buick Avenue, Dallas Brooks Drive, and the surrounding streets. Admission is free and visitors are most welcome. In fact, our monthly meeting was only just last Wednesday, and in fact, we even though a meeting did go ahead, there was actually no meeting at the hall in the Melbourne Observatory. I only discovered that when I went to look at the YouTube feed for the presentation last Wednesday, and Mark was indicating that the presentation was all on Zoom, and that we were actually apparently out of bounds from the actual hall itself. I knew the club room, meeting room, was off out of bounds due to something going on, but I didn't realise the actual hall itself was also not accessible by the ASV too. So the previous week, here I am saying, you can roll up into the hall and get there, and it's free entry and visitors are most welcome, sort of thing. And there was no entry, so apologies for anybody who decided to actually roll up and find that there was nothing happening. It was all on Zoom, and of course the stream went out on ASV's YouTube channel and Facebook. And I might add that the presentation was a ripper. We had Mandau, which is Rami Mandau, a PhD student. Let me just confirm that very quickly. And his talk went for just a little bit on an hour about pulses. and the research he's doing at the Parkes Radio Telescope, and Rami Mandau, first year PhD student at Macquarie University, and he's working with the Parkes Pulsar Timing Array project, and he was most interesting. He just didn't stop for an hour. You can view it. It is viewable. It was recorded and it is viewable on the ASV's YouTube channel, so you can catch up with it. I actually plan to run it on the ATV repeater, maybe this weekend sometime. Anyway, so that was a ripper. I'm glad I caught in with that last Wednesday. And like I say, you can catch up with it if you go to the ASV's YouTube channel. Meanwhile, back to the dialogue. So, privileges of membership include the right to borrow books, big articles and other publications from the Society's extensive library located at Melbourne Observatory, receipt of the ASV magazine Crux containing articles, news, observing notes and the like, which I've got a copy here of. Excuse me, this is the Crux that I refer to all the time. Really need another camera for this, but there it is. That's the glossy colour, full colour production, and very good indeed. So, having said all that, access is available to telescopes on members' nights held regularly at the Melbourne Observatory and after the monthly meetings, weather permitting. The instruments include the Society's 300mm equatorial reflector and a 300mm portable reflector. There's also a 200mm refractor managed by the Royal Botanic Gardens, and a recently restored photoheliograph are also housed at the observatory and are accessible as well. The Society also has a number of 200mm reflectors available for short period loan, so members can try before they buy. In fact, the telescope loan scheme has been revitalised and it's now back online again. Apparently, it was there was some work being done, but now it seems to be back online again. So members can borrow telescopes for a number of months. Excuse me. Members are also encouraged to make use of the Society's country property located just near Heathcote, some 90 minutes drive north of Melbourne, 2.5 hours if you're out here at Narre Warren. There are a range of instruments available for members to use, larger to only with appropriate training, which range from 300mm to 1000mm in aperture. Also located on site is a 8.5 metre fully steerable radio telescope, which members can access with involvement in the radio astronomy section. Members are encouraged to make and use telescopes. Advice and help on both matters are provided willingly to newcomers desiring to do the same. Instrument making is only one of the number of common interest activities catered for within the Society. Other areas of interest that members can participate in include deep sky observing, astrophotography, lunar and planetary observing, auroral, meteor, comet, radio astronomy, computing, cosmology and astrophysics, historical studies and research, and astronomy in general. Contact details for the various section directors can be found in the yearbook, but you need to be a member to get access to the yearbook. So the next best thing is to go to the ASV's website at www.asv.org.au. That's www.asv.org.au and explore the website. But basically under the sections tab you will be able to find all the information you need on the various sections that there are, about 21, 22 now, and you can get contact details for the section director. So if you want to pop in on a meeting, you should be able to visit as a guest, as a visitor, and from there, if you find it of some value and some interest, then talk to the section director about what's involved in becoming a member. Anyway, that's another story. So, and of course, all ASV events maybe needed to be postponed due to health government directives and things like that. So any information that goes along those lines will be all emailed out to members, so we're all aware of what's going on. If you like, you can write to the Secretary at Astronomical Society Victoria, GPO Box 1059, Melbourne, Victoria 3001, if you wish. Meanwhile, you are tuned to the ASV's regular broadcast here on Friday nights at 10 o'clock, been running since 1988. Good morning or good evening to Russell, if you're listening, Mr. DRW, the original owner of the call sign, or not the owner, but the operator. Anyways, we also have an email address. If folks wish to send signal reports and the like, you can send to vk3ekh@gmail.com. That's right, yep, vk3ekh@gmail.com. And also we have a Discord chat room operating, so if you've got access to Discord, look for ASV Radio tab or link, whatever it might be called, within Discord, and you should be able to find the ASV's Discord channel. Pleasant good evening to folks that are there. G'day Remus, Martin, VK7JH, Steve, 3SPX, and Dave, VK3KDM, who's our resident Mount Burnett visitor. Okay. And Steve has actually sent me an email. He says, great signal. And that's it, 30 over 9. That's good. I was playing around with the audio just a moment before I went on, so I'm hoping that audio is okay. I think it is okay on SSB, but just a bit worried about the levels on YouTube. It's so easy to distort on YouTube. Got to keep an eye on that. Anyways, all right. Now we have a few things, so I'm going to go straight into this article from the website sciencealert.com, and published 11th of August 2023 by Michelle Starr. That's a surname, Starr, S-T-A-R-R. Okay. Titled, Scientists Appear to Have Found a gigantic question mark in space. And I shall bring up the picture of that so you can all see on the TVs and monitors around the place. But there it is, there's a giant question mark in space. But I'll just keep that up there for a sec, but I'll go to the full shot. Where you don't actually see it at all. It's not until you really zoom in that you actually see this object. So this is what Science Alert published, was a picture with an arrow pointing at it. But we'll try and get past that, the arrow bit. It's not as if there was an arrow floating in space. How would that be? All right, let's just go to the actual image, overall image, and there it is. So as for the folks that are watching YouTube, and I know there's a delay on that, if you're listening to me on 80 meters and then the delay on YouTube is a bit of a hassle, I understand that. That's where if you tuned into the TV repeater, there's microseconds of delay. So how much better is that? Anyway, yes, there's the overall shot, and if you can see at the bottom, there's a little yellow square, and within that yellow square is this unusual question mark looking object. So I'll go to the next image, which brings it up just a bit closer, and there it is. So you can just make out, as we've zoomed in a little bit on that yellow square, you can just make out the question mark thingy. And then if we go right up to it without the arrow this time, so there it is. Okay, so what's the article saying? Zoom in on a stunning new image from the James Webb Space Telescope and you might be in for a little surprise. There are, in the background of spectacular starbirth, lurks a curlicue and a blob of light in the shape of an English punctuation mark, the question mark. It's unclear exactly what the object is, but it's relatively far away. Generally speaking, the redder an object appears in a field, the greater its distance. This is because the accelerating expansion of the universe stretches light as it travels towards us, lengthening it into the redder parts of the spectrum. The two blobs appear to be roughly the same colour, raising the intriguing possibility that they could be two distant galaxies interacting. This is a phenomenon that we see a fair bit in the universe, and the gravitational interplay can pull such galaxies to interesting elongated shapes. Some of them even look like other things, like the antennae galaxies look a little like a mirrored bass clef, a musical bass clef, which kind of looks a bit like the top part of a question mark too. Then there's also the ARP23, which looks like a bit like a rose, and ARP Mador 2026-424 looks like a spooky skull. All these nebula we're referring to here. They are not those things, of course. They just appear to be due to the quirk of human perception, which is known as pareidolia, in which we see patterns meaning in random arrangements of elements. We don't often see something that looks quite so neatly like a punctuation mark, but up close the cosmic question mark might look very different. We may just have the perfect combination of distance and perspective to make the two objects look like something that's meaningful to us. If the universe were to have a mascot, though, we'd nominate the cosmic question mark. Has there ever been another object that so beautifully sums up our boundless curiosity of the boundless realms above? Question mark. You can download the full sizes of the image to ponder the nature of everything from the ESA's website to find that image. Yes, there it is. So there it is, some of the amazing things that we do see in space, even though it took some hunting to find that, I bet. But anyway, that's another image from the James Webb Space Telescope, looking for things in space. You're tuned to ASV Radio, VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel. Alright, last week I was going to mention this particular subject, but we ran out of time. So we have plenty of time here right now. The question is, how many satellites can we safely fit in Earth orbit? And that's probably a fair enough question, actually, given the fact that we are populating the area around our planet ever so much these days. So just 10 years ago, a mere 1,000 or so operational satellites may have orbited our planet, but there will be tens or even hundreds of thousands a decade from now. Experts have been sounding alarm bells for years that Earth orbit is getting a bit too crowded. So how many satellites can we actually launch to space before it gets simply too much? Jonathan McDowell is an astrophysicist and astronomer at the Harvard-Smithsonian Center of Astrophysics who studies super energetic phenomena in the universe, such as jet-emitting black holes in galactic centers. In recent years, however, McDonald has gained prominence for his work in a completely different field of space research. In his monthly digital circular called Jonathan's Space Report, McDowell tracks the growing number of satellite launches and the ballooning number of objects in Earth orbit. The project started with an ambition to provide a pedantic historical record of the space age, but has in a way become a chronicle of the environmental destruction of near-Earth environment. In his frequent media appearances, McDonald has been vocal about his views on the future of the increasingly overcrowded near-Earth space. It's going to be like an interstate highway at rush hour in a snowstorm, with everyone driving much too fast, he told Science.com. When asked what the situation in orbit will be like if existing plans for satellite mega constellations such as SpaceX, Starlink and OneWeb and Amazon Kuiper come to fruition. Except that there are multiple interstate highways crossing each other with no stoplights. So, the first signs that things are getting a little too tense are, in fact, already present. McDowell's British colleague Hugh Lewis is another frequently heard voice of caution, tempering the confidence of entrepreneurs caught in the new space gold rush. A professor of astronautics at the University of Southampton in England, Lewis has been for a few years now publishing regular updates on his Twitter page dealing with the increase in so-called conjunction events, situations when two objects in space, functioning satellites or pieces of space debris, get dangerously close to each other. Some of his graphs are a sobering read. In a post published on Twitter on Jan 13, Lewis stated that the overall number of conjunctions predicted for 2022 was 134% higher than the number of 2020 for the number for the year 2020 and 58% higher than 2021, exceeding 4 million. That, Lewis told Space.com, doesn't mean that on 4 million occasions objects in space came close to a collision. Just that managing traffic in space is getting much more complicated than it has ever been in the past. Take SpaceX's Starlink as an example. According to the information that Elon Musk-owned company submitted to the US Federal Communications Commission (FCC) in December last year, SpaceX autonomous collision avoidance system performed 26,037 orbital avoidance maneuvers with its Starlink satellites in a 2-year period between December 1, 2020 and November 30, 2022. That means each Starlink satellite of the near 4,000 that have been launched to date performed, on average, 12 avoidance maneuvers during that time. But the size of SpaceX's current constellation is less than 10% of what the company plans to deploy. Within the next 10 years, the number of Starlink satellites in orbit may rise to 42,000. Add to that up to 4,000 satellites that OneWeb wants to launch, another 3,200 of Amazon Kuiper's craft, and 13,000 satellites of China's envisioned Goang system. And it becomes obvious that things are set to get much more heated. According to the FCC document, SpaceX claims that each of its satellites has a sufficient amount of fuel on board to perform 350 collision avoidance maneuvers over its expected 5-year lifetime. But that number could be reached remarkably soon, according to Lewis's calculations. The number of required avoidance maneuvers is increasingly non-linearly, Lewis said. By about 2027 or 2028, the Starlink constellation might have made throughout its lifetime a total of 1 million collision avoidance maneuvers. And that also corresponds potentially to the earliest time when they reached 350 collision avoidance maneuvers per satellite per 5-year lifetime period. We are talking about potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of maneuvers a day. In short, less than 5 years from now, Starlink satellites may be running out of fuel in a shorter period of time than their designed lifetime because of the sheer number of avoidance maneuvers that they will have to perform. Lewis, however, commends SpaceX for its attitude to space safety. The company, which only 5 years ago had not a single satellite in space, is now, with a substantial margin, the world's largest satellite operator. Since the launch of its first satellite in 2019, SpaceX has developed a robust attitude. The company says its autonomous avoidance system maneuvers every time the Starlink satellite encounters a situation with 1 in 100,000 probability of a collision. This level of risk is an order of magnitude lower than the threshold used by NASA. SpaceX also assumes responsibility in every conjunction situation and performs a maneuver unless operators of the other satellite involved in the conjunction prefer to do so themselves, the company told FCC. Actually, I've got a little image here, a little GIF image that shows all the satellites in orbit. So there it is. It's a little GIF image that shows you. It's actually a bit of a low-res image, but there it is. So collisions. Operational satellites, however, are only one part of the problem. The European Space Agency estimates that near-Earth space is cluttered with some 36,500 pieces of space debris larger than 4 inches, or 10 centimetres, about a million objects, 0.4 to 4 inches, or again 1 to 10 centimetres in size, and an outstanding 130 million fragments smaller than 0.4 inches or 1 centimetre. The amount of the smaller stuff in particular continues to rise as larger objects collide with each other at enormous orbital speeds, producing clouds of fragments. There's good evidence that the number of minor collisions is already increasing significantly, McDowell said. We are seeing debris from objects that shouldn't really be creating debris. They probably have been hit by something small, even if they carry on working afterwards. While the larger debris fragments over 4 inches in size are regularly tracked, trajectories of smaller pieces are almost unknown, and the collisions that they can cause come entirely without warning. Debris experts, however, are most concerned about the encounters between two large defunct bodies, dead satellites or used rocket stages. One such close approach between a decades-old Russian rocket upper stage and a long-defunct Russian satellite took place on Jan 27, with neither object being able to maneuver. Space traffic guards could only look with their fingers crossed, hoping that the two would miss each other. On this occasion, they did, but by a mere 20 feet, 6 metres. The incident, described as a close call, worst-case scenario, could have spawned thousands of dangerous debris fragments that would have stayed in orbit for centuries, threatening everything in their path. The combination of increasing numbers of new satellites and the growing amount of orbital junk leads to a perilous situation that the not-so-distant future may turn some regions of near-Earth space into a dangerous no-go zone. Things like the Jan 27 incident will start happening more often, McDowell said. One collision doesn't change things dramatically, but once we have one a year, you get a regime where you start to have a lot of losses of satellites. It will start to affect the economics of low Earth orbit. Companies will start losing serious money because their satellites keep getting destroyed. And I've got another image here. It's a kind of an animation of a satellite breaking up. There it is there. So in conclusion of this article, going back to the question, so how many satellites can we safely fit into space? So how many more satellites can Earth orbit safely hold, you might ask? The answer to this question is not straightforward. Lewis says that certain orbital attitudes are more vulnerable than others. For example, Starlink satellites orbit 342 miles or 550 kilometers above Earth. Objects at this altitude usually don't remain cluttering space for too long after they cease operations, even if their thrusters fail at the end of their missions and don't bring the craft back to Earth's atmosphere to burn up immediately, as many operators promise. These satellites' orbits naturally decay within a few years. thanks to atmospheric drag. This natural cleansing ability of Earth's orbit, however, declines with altitude. The space environment is like a system where you have flows in and flows out, said Lewis. We launch things into space, and the flow coming out, typically due to atmospheric drag, is the only mechanism we've got really to naturally remove things from the environment. But above 1,000 kilometers, the atmosphere doesn't really do anything because it's so sparse. There's no sink. The numbers can only go up. One Webb constellation inhabits this treacherous altitude range, and so does the smaller global star. Most mega constellation operators pledge to ensure their craft have enough fuel left at mission's end to take themselves down where the Earth's atmosphere can take care of things. But the likelihood of technical malfunctions, still worries experts. In 2012, the European Space Agency and outspoken champion of sustainable space operations failed to remove its 8 metric tons Earth observation satellite Envisat from its orbit 772 kilometers above Earth. The craft, which will continue orbiting the planet for centuries, is now among the most dangerous pieces of space debris. McDowell says that humankind is likely going to discover the natural capacity of near-Earth space the hard way. Despite the pledges of mega constellation operators, the astrophysicist doubts that things will remain manageable in the years ahead. 5 or 10 years from now, we'll have somewhere between 20,000 to 100,000 satellites, and he says, I am very skeptical about the upper number of 100,000. Things can be operated safely, McDowell said. So the question is, what happens next? Is the space industry dazzled by the confidence of new space interpreters, or sleepwalking into its own version of a climate change? The usual response of humans is environmental problems is to do little, too late, McDowell said. He says, I think we are then going to try and scramble and do something at the last minute. And that maybe let's carry on surfing the edge of disaster. McDowell sees a future where those interstate highways are finally going to receive stoplights, where overpasses get built, and where traffic rules get implemented and enforced. He says, I think that we'll see regulations to limit how many satellites you can have at each orbital height, regulations to discourage elliptical orbits and force everyone to be in circular orbits, where we are already seeing increasing support for a ban on anti-satellite weapons. We may start to see actual penalties of debris-causing events, like if you are careless enough to design your rocket so that it blows up accidentally, you might get fined for it, for like littering. The sort of change might then persuade relevant manufacturers to be a bit more careful. The precedent of more tightly controlled access to space already exists, McDowell added. Slots in geostationary orbit, the sought after altitude around 22,000 miles or 36,000 kilometers above Earth, where satellites appear suspended above a fixed point on the planet, where with a stable view of a large portion of the globe, are allocated by International Telecommunications Union on a first-come, first-served basis. In lower orbits, however, licenses are awarded by national bodies that have no obligation to coordinate with each other. It's truth. I think that will change, McDowell said. As usual, as resources get scarce, governments will exercise more control over the allocation of those resources. And experts are also calling on space agencies to develop technology to remove most dangerous pieces of orbital debris. There is no business case for such a service so far, so the appetite is low. But an attitude change may be in the air. In July last year, the US government published its National Orbital Debris Implementation Plan, which outlines steps forward to maintain order in Earth's orbit, and whatever happens, the status quo is unlikely to remain in place for long. You're tuned to VK3EKH, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, with the regular Friday night broadcast, coming to you from the studios of VK3CSJ in Narre Warren South. So, as a bit of a continuation of that theme, and this is a shorter article, thank goodness. This falls back on the old problem about having too much satellites in orbit. Starlink satellites disrupt cosmic studies. The constellations of satellites are posing big problems for radio astronomers. Published 9th of August. Astronomy.com. The vast fleet of Starlink satellites is interfering with astronomical observations. I think we've already heard this story. A study published in Astronomy and Astrophysics has revealed when astrophysicists observed 68 of SpaceX's satellites with low-frequency array (LOFAR) telescope in northern Netherlands, they detected unintended electromagnetic radiation emanating from onboard electronics on the satellites. As more large constellations of satellites are set for launch, the impact they will have on data collection and observations is now gaining attention from experts and being more carefully considered. We need to be prepared and understand what can happen if these extremely large constellations are ever launched and their effects, says Spectrum Manager of the Square Kilometre Array Observatory and study author Federico Di Veruno. Di Veruno, I think it's how you pronounce it, says that the vast number of planned satellites ranging in the hundreds of thousands may significantly interfere with radio astronomy. Starlink plans to eventually launch a total of 42,000 satellites. To date, more than 4,000 skim past the skies in low Earth orbit. More recently, on July 15, SpaceX's Falcon 9 launched 54 Starlink satellites into space. Countless objects in space radiate different forms of light on the electromagnetic spectrum. Throughout space, electromagnetic spectrum travel like ripples move through water. Distant galaxies, vibrant nebulae, and radio bursts from planets all emit forms of electromagnetic radiation that experts tune into with radio telescopes and amplify to get the full picture of what we can't see with our eyes. When astrophysicists observe the skies of these celestial phenomena, they do so at frequencies above 30 megahertz and 300 gigahertz, for example. Scientists would pick up signals from a cell phone on the moon and with these sensitivities. Di Runo explains that while the SpaceX satellites do emit electromagnetic radiation, they may interfere with radio telescopes on Earth. He states that it is no more than that released from a television. What creates a big problem for astronomers is the total number of satellites that emit radiation simultaneously, which creates a disruptive amount of radiation. Of the 68 satellites observed during the recent study, the team detected radiation between 110 to 118 megahertz from 47 of Starlink satellites, according to a statement. This range encroaches on a protected band of 150.05 to 153 megahertz, allocated by the International Telecommunications Union. However, SpaceX did not violate any rules protecting radio astronomy because currently no regulations are in place to protect terrestrial radio telescopes against radio interference. The swarm of satellite constellations is a network of units that monitor Earth, provide communication, and ensure uninterrupted or near uninterrupted global broadband internet coverage. Other larger constellations are also planned for launch, such as OneWeb. This global communications network currently has 648 satellites in 12 orbital planes situated in low Earth orbit. As satellites orbiting Earth produce and receive radio signals to and from Earth to communicate with the ground, radio astronomers have dealt with this excess noise for decades. They can mitigate the impact these signals have on research by tracking where the satellites will be and avoiding their locations when seeing or noting any interference within data. Early this year, SpaceX and the National Space Foundation finalised an agreement wherein they agreed to limit the interference from Starlink satellites to radio astronomy assets observing between 10.6 and 10.7 gigahertz, such as the National Radio Observatory at the Green Bank Observatory. And while astrophysicists have worked around radio frequency interference, experts are concerned about the number of satellites that will leak radiation, making a higher percentage of their data unusable. If your stream has radio interference, you just get noise, says Yvette Sendez, a radio astronomer at the Harvard Smithsonian Center of Astrophysics. If you have an hour-long observation and you're left with only 10 minutes, it's just lost observation. Diruno describes it as being in a dark room when suddenly someone lights a torch near your eyes. You just suddenly blind and you don't see anything. That's a similar situation. The study brings to light that must be considered how the large constellation array launches are becoming commonplace. Currently, the study's authors are in contact with SpaceX, discussing possible ways to mitigate the leak of unintentional radiation. We are getting to this early so that we can have the discussion not only with the regulators to try to say how can we address the lack of regulation here, because we see that this is an important thing, Diruno said. So it's a continuing issue, and with the number of satellites and with the interference factor to astronomy. Not to mention the optical astronomers as well. Okay, at 19 minutes to 11, this is VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel in Narre South. G'day to Andrew, VK3KIS. Alright, let me see, just have a quick look at this article. Next one. Oh yeah, okay. Courtesy of Science Alert, published 11th of August. Giant structure deep in Australia may be the largest asteroid impact on record. In recent research published by myself and by my colleague Tony Yates, that's the author, in the journal Technophysics, Technophysics, that's right, we investigate what we believe, based on many years of experience in asteroid impact research, is the world's largest known impact structure buried deep in Earth in southern New South Wales. It's the Deniliquin structure, they're calling it. Deniliquin structure, yet to be further tested by drilling, spans up to 520 kilometres in diameter. How is that? This exceeds the size of the near 300 kilometre wide Veredi Fort impact structure in South Africa, which to date has been considered the world's largest. Veredi Fort, Vredefort, Veredi Fort. Hidden traces of Earth's early history. The history of Earth's bombardment by asteroids is largely concealed. There are a few reasons for this. The first is erosion, the process by which gravity, wind and water slowly wear away the land materials over time. When an asteroid strikes, it creates a crater with an uplifted core. This is similar to how a drop of water splashes upward from a transient crater when you drop a pebble into a pool. This central uplifted dome is a key characteristic of the large impact structures. However, it can erode over thousands to millions of years, making the structure difficult to identify. Structures can also be buried by sediment through time, or they might disappear as a result of subduction, wherein tectonic plates can collide and slide below one another to Earth's mantle layer. Nonetheless, new geophysical discoveries are unearthing signatures of impact structures formed by asteroids that may have reached tens of kilometres across, heralding a paradigm shift in our understanding of how Earth evolved over eons. These include pioneering discoveries of impact ejecta, which are the materials thrown out of a crater during an impact. Researchers think the oldest layers of this ejecta, found in sediments in early terrains around the world, might signify the tail end of a late heavy bombardment of Earth. The latest evidence suggests Earth and other planets in the solar system were subject to intense asteroid bombardments. Oh my God, I'm not getting that right now. Until about 3.2 billion years ago, and sporadically since. Some large impacts impacts are correlated with mass extinction events. For example, the Alvarez hypothesis, named after father and son scientists Lewis and Walter Alvarez, explains how non-Varian dinosaurs were wiped out as a result of a large asteroid strike some 66 million years ago. Uncovering the Deniliquin structure. The Australian continent and its predecessor continent, Gondwana, have been the target of numerous asteroid impacts. In fact, let me show you this image. A map of Australia. I always get intrigued when I see this. Okay. The Australian continent and its predecessor continent, Gondwana, have been the target of numerous asteroid impacts. These have resulted in at least 38 confirmed and 43 potential impact structures, ranging from relatively small craters to large and completely buried structures. So for those watching YouTube and TV Repeater, this map shows the distribution of circular structures of uncertain, possible or probable impact origin on the Australian continent and offshore. The green dots represent confirmed impact craters. Red dots represent confirmed impact structures that are more than 100 kilometres wide, whereas the red dots inside white circles are more than 50 kilometres wide. Yellow dots represent likely impact structures. So our dear old continent is absolutely pockmarked with them. Well, unfortunately, there's nothing here in Victoria, which is a bit odd. Yeah. Anyway, to finish the article, as you'll recall with the Paul and Pebble analogy, when a large asteroid hits Earth, the underlying crust responds with a transient elastic rebound that produces a central dome. Such domes, which can slowly erode and or become buried through time, may be all that's preserved from the original impact structure. They represent the deep-seated rooted zone of an impact. Famous examples are found in the Verafort impact structure and the 170 kilometre wide Chicxulub crater in Mexico. The latter represents the impact that caused by the extinction of dinosaurs. Between 1995 and 2000, Tony Yates suggested magnetic patterns beneath the Murray Basin in New South Wales likely represented a massive buried impact structure. An analysis of the region's updated geophysical data between 2015 and 2020 confirmed the existence of a 520 kilometre diameter structure with a seismically defined dome at its centre. The Deniliquin structure has all the features that would be expected from a large-scale impact structure. For instance, magnetic readings of the area reveal a symmetrical rippling pattern in the crust around the structure's core, and I've got an image of this too. There it is, that one there. All right. So for instance, magnetic readings of the area reveal a symmetrical rippling pattern in the crust around the structure's core. This was likely produced during the impact, and extremely high temperatures created intense magnetic forces. A central low magnetic zone corresponds to 30 kilometre deep deformation above a seismically defined mantle dome. The top of this dome is about 10 kilometres shallower than the top of the original regional mantle. Magnetic measurements also show evidence of radial faults, fractures that radiate from the centre of the large impact structure. This is further accompanied by small magnetic anomalies which may represent igneous dikes, which are sheets of magma injected into fractures in a pre-existing body of rock. Radial faults and igneous sheets of rocks that form within them are typical of large impact structures and can be found in the Verifort structure and the Sudbury impact structure in Canada. Currently, the bulk of the evidence for the Deniliquin impact is based on geophysical data obtained from the surface. For proof of impact, we'll need to collect physical evidence of shock, which can only come about from drilling deep into the structure. So when did the Deniliquin impact occur? The Deniliquin structure was likely located in the eastern part of Gondwana continent prior to the splitting off into several continents, including Australian continent much later. And there's a picture of that too, actually. A little map that got produced of this early period of time. The impact that caused it may have occurred during this, what's known as the late Orvonican mass extinction event. Specifically, the author thinks that it may be triggered what's called the Pernacian Glacian stage, which lasted between 445.2 to 443.8 million years ago, and is also defined as the Ordovician-Silurian extinction event. You have to read the article. This huge and mass extinction event eliminated about 85% of the planet species. It was more than double the scale of the Chicxulub impact that killed off the dinosaurs. It is also possible that the Deniliquin structure is older than this other event and may be of an earlier Cambrian origin, about 514 million years ago. The next step will be to gather samples to determine the structure's exact age. This will require drilling a deep hole into its magnetic centre and dating the exact material. It is hoped further studies of the Deniliquin impact structure will shed new light on the nature of the early Paleozoic Earth as we know it. So, yes, that's an interesting little article published in sciencealert.com. And it's called Giant Structure Deep in Australia, maybe the largest asteroid impact on record. So I thought that was interesting to find out. I might go checking it out on Google Earth later. Okay, what's that time there? It's coming up to 7:02. Okay, we heard on the news tonight that the Russians have launched Luna 25 moon lander, its first lunar probe in 47 years. Luna 25 will kick off a new and ambitious Russian moon program if all goes according to plan. Just giving things in this article. Luna 25 carries the following instruments, which together weigh about 66 pounds or 30 kilograms. There's a service television system, STSL, a lunar manipulator complex, LMK, with soil intake device, a neutron and gamma detector to remotely look for water ice, infrared spectrometer, a laser mass spectrometer, ion energy mass analyzer, a dust monitor, and a scientific information control unit. Luna's 25 most important task, to put it simply, is to sit where no one has sat, comma. Maximum Litvak, a chief scientist for the mission from Russia's Space Agency Research Institute, that is Russia's Space Research Institute, known for it's just IKI, said in a posting, now everyone is aiming for the polar regions. This area is intriguing to everyone in the scientific community, he said. There are signs of ice in the soil of the Luna 25 landings area, and this can be seen from data from orbit. In the equatorial regions where we landed earlier, this is not the case, he says. Indeed, Luna 25 is slated to touch down around the same time and in the same general area as India's Chandrayaan 3 probe, which launched on July 14 and arrived in lunar orbit on August 6, and NASA plans to establish one of the more bases near the Moon's south pole by the end of 2020s via the Artemis program. So yeah, that's all happening as we speak, and be interesting to see how that all goes, whether they crash into the surface there like they sometimes do, or whether it's a success. Actually, there's a picture of this probe here. Not much to look at. It's all wrapped up in gold-plated wrap. So it's a funny-looking probe. And there's another image here of where roughly on the moon surface this concentration is going to be, where those circles are. So okay. All right, coming up to this next one. That'll finish off the hours. All right, I think what I will do is leave that till next week. A powerful sunstorm knocks out radio transmissions across North America. That was 3 days ago that occurred. The sun unleashed its second X-class flare in less than 3 days, and we should brace for more such activity. That's the highlights of that article. A powerful solar flare disrupted radio and navigation signals across North America on Monday, August 7, and prompted space weather forecasters to issue warnings because the energetic particles hitting Earth. The flare, classified as an X1.5, was the 20th X flare, the most potent solar flare category of the current 11-year cycle, which will reach its maximum in the next year. So let's segue into spaceweather.com, but before I do, just a little bit of a promotion here for astrophys.com. As you know, occasionally I feature interviews that Brendan O'Brien does with astrophysicists and such scientists and astronomers. And if you go to his website, astrophys.com, you'll get a chance to listen into one of these many recordings that he's got. So thank you, Brendan, for allowing us to play some of your recordings, interviews in the past. Okay, spaceweather.com. Oh dear, I'm losing my voice already. Come to me. Where's the camera? There it is. Okay. The solar wind is currently at a speed at 469.4 kilometers a second at a density of 0.55 protons per cubic centimeter. The current disk of the sun looks like this, and which means there's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sunspots on the disk facing Earth at the moment. The sunspot number is currently at 83, and the radio sun solar flux is currently 153 solar flux units measured at a wavelength of 10.7 centimeters. Going back to the top, hang on, let's go down a bit further. Planetary K index. Currently the KP is 1.33, which is considered quiet. The 24-hour max KP will be 2.67, but that's also considered quiet. The current auroral glow over the Antarctica. Did I bring that across? Didn't I bring that across? Can't see it in my list here. I know I did take a picture of it, so I shall just, there it is. It's not much to speak of, but here it is anyway for those watching TV. So as you can see, the auroral glow, the aurora australis is quite low. It's not much being seen at all at the moment, so not much to really consider there. And the other thing that SpaceX reports on is a very good precede meteor shower. I think this is predominantly in the northern hemisphere though. Forecasters are predicting the best precede meteor shower in years this weekend. On Saturday night, August 12 to 13, Earth will pass through a stream of debris from Comet 109P Swift-Tuttle, causing dozens of meteors per hour to streak out of the constellation Perseus. The near new moon will make this display unusually easy to see from a dark sky sights. But I think that's predominantly a northern hemisphere meteor shower. They're also talking about Venus is now a ring. They say here, it's a holy grail for or of amateur astronomy. And I think, did I save this image too? Yes, there it is. Okay, this one. All right, so what are we looking at here? Venus is now a ring. It's a holy grail of amateur astronomy. To photograph Venus so close to the Sun that its night side is framed by an angulus of light. French astrophotographer Didier Favre succeeded on August 10th with only a little extra contrast. His photo reveals that Venus is now a ring. It's very subtle, but it's there, says Favre. He says, I am not unhappy with the result because it took more than 30,000 images, of which only 20% were kept to be able to present it to you. This rare event is a sign that Venus is approaching inferior conjunction. On the 13th of August, Venus will pass almost directly between Earth and the Sun, and at that time the night side of Venus will face Earth, with only a fringe of sunlit cloud tops visible around the planet's circumference. At closest approach on August 13, Venus and the Sun will separate by a little more than 7 degrees. This means careful daytime shots of Venus will be possible throughout the conjunction. Got a picture? Submit it here. Oh, that's what they say. So that's interesting. For you astrophotographers out there, that might be something to aim for. On the 13th of August, if it's a clear bloody day, no clouds in the sky, look for where Venus is in the sky and see if you can photograph a potential ring. And it's also interesting that it's its closest approach to Earth too. I've had various ideas about that in regards to radio astronomy. Anyway, that's another story. All right, so as of August 11, 2023, there were 2,349 potentially hazardous asteroids. And we all thought that we had an asteroid entering over Melbourne the other day. I don't know if any of you saw that footage. In fact, I was thinking about downloading some of that footage to show you tonight, for those that might not have seen the many news articles. But there was an incredible entry over Melbourne, over Victoria, at somewhere around about 11:30 on Tuesday evening, I think. And it left a sonic boom, and I heard that. I actually heard it. I was in the bathroom at the time, and I had the TV sound turned down, and I heard this distinctive boom, and I thought it was a car crash. And I went out to the door and looked out to the intersection, and no evidence of a car crash. So unfortunately, I didn't see the spectacular sight going overhead. But I certainly heard the sonic boom, and because, as we all know now, it was a little bit of Russian debris from some blasted satellite, that some of that space junk that I was talking about earlier. So, but it did make for a very spectacular re-entry, and the various videos that were taken of it show just exactly how it appeared. So it was quite spectacular. Just one more thing I was going to show. The cosmic radiation, because of the increase in sunspot activity, and we're slowly coming up to the peak of solar cycle 25, the cosmic radiation count is decreasing. And as this chart shows on the screen right now, you can see how the count is less, minus 15% from where it would normally be as a result of the cycle 25. So cosmic radiation continues to reduce. And this graph shows you where we are on the chart. Sun cycle 25. So the red line is the trend, and of course the actual recording of solar activity is the purple line with the data superimposed on that. So the peak of the cycle is looking to be around about the year in the middle of 2024, 20 to 2026. But the peak could be a little bit earlier perhaps. So that's the latest chart for cycle 25. And there was one other thing I was going to show. This is an interesting picture too. This is looking at the sun. The left side is during solar cycle event, peak solar activity, where the other side, the right side of the image, is during solar minima. So it clearly shows that those two halves there clearly show the difference between solar maxima and solar minimum, just how the sun appears every 11 years or so. Very interesting, isn't it? The reasons for that. So there it is. That's tonight's session. I hope all that dialogue didn't put you to sleep. Anyway, all right. On that note, I shall conclude tonight's broadcast. I hope you found it of some value, some interest. The emphasis was definitely on the number of satellites in orbit and how it's slowly getting out of control one way or another. Yeah, okay, so only a couple of people sent emails, Andrew and Steve, and to the folks on Discord, thank you for coming up from Discord, Remus, Martin, and Dave, and Bill, VK3KHT. And we shall now open up the frequency for any stations wishing to call in. So we're just getting my pad here ready. This is VK3. Let me just turn the volume up here. All right, VK3 EKH listening on 3541.
VK3 Golf Lima. VK3 TJS. Zulu. VK7JAH. VK3 TJS. VK3 SPX. Delta X-ray. This is VK3 KRS. VK3 Bravo Sugar Fox.
Would you believe that with the last three call signs, my pen has run out? Oh my God. It's not... Nope. It's just run out. Oh. Where's another pen? I haven't got another pen around here. Well, oh yes, there's another pen. Well, wouldn't it bother you? Alright, 3 Delta X... Oh no, that's not working either. Now come on, how's the chance of 2 pens not working? Struth. It's not going to work, the bugger. 2 pens, it's not going to work. I don't think I'm going to be any luckier with any other pens. Looking around. Oh God. Nope. Alright. Actually, do I have my mobile phone? No, that's downstairs. Alright. The last 2 call signs I think I can make out with the impression I've left in the paper. I think. VK3GL, VK3TJS, VK7JAH, VK3SPX, VK3DX, VK3BSF. That's where the pen really ran out. And there's one other there. I didn't quite catch that because I lost my Anyway, all right, we'll start at the top. VK3GL, Graham, have a say while I look for a pen. VK3KH.
Alrighty, Clint. Very good evening to you. VK3EKH and the listening group this evening, VK3GL, down in sunny Bunyip, where it has been not too bad today. Yeah, trust you're all doing well. And Clint, thanks very much for the broadcast. I've listened to at least the last half of it. One of those nights tonight where I'm not working, which is good. And I came into the shack around about 20 past 10. So caught the last 40 minutes or so of the cast, all very interesting. I didn't hear the sonic boom that you were referring to from the other night. I did hear all of the reports on the news the next morning, but didn't hear it or know anything about it until the news was on the following morning. I did go to bed relatively late, and I think it was pretty much after midnight before it was near enough lights out. So it's a wonder that I didn't hear that noise outside. I'm sure I would have, particularly if you were inside. I think you said you were in the loo. Could have been mistaken for something else, I guess, but
I was in the bathroom.
It was apparently heard for a long way, a very long way. Reports from Shepparton and Phillip Island and places like that as well. So the sound certainly travels from way up high. Obviously a lot further than what it does when it's like a thunderstorm or something like that, and you hear a bang that seems to roll on for a wee while. That's sort of fairly localised. Anyway, all very good stuff. Pardon me. I heard them talking the other night about the space race, and I think that's been incited by the fact that I think you said Artemis 1 or Artemis 2 or something is going to be the next mission to the moon in 2025, and there's some talk as whether or not Russia might join the expedition and try and do something themselves, or maybe China or whatever. So it will be interesting to see what happens as far as anyone making claims about their patch on the moon, and who's got claiming rights to it. It conjures up all sorts of things, doesn't it, in terms of people wanting, or nations wanting to scrap over their piece of the pie up there. Anyway, I might have a bit of a chat to you after the net tonight if you've got time there, Clint, and we can have a few words then. Thanks very much again for doing the broadcast. Another great job. VK3KH, VK3GL in Bunyip.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. VK3GL, Bunyip, VK3EKH returning, and we have a working pen now. I had to go to my dust coat. I usually have a swag of pens in the dust coat, the anti-static coat that I wear. So, yeah, it's my Australian Super pen. That one there. Anyway, take my word for it. Yeah, well, I had no idea that it was a object re-entering. Pardon me. Even the sound that it made was well, not enough for me to think that it was. I mean, I've never heard an object re-entering the sonic boom. That is to say, not in person, but the one that the asteroid breakup over Russia a few years ago is a significant one, because that definitely left a fair decent trail in the upper atmosphere. But at the same time, the sonic boom was so incredible that it damaged a lot of infrastructure on the ground, and a lot of the video footage taken of that is just mind-boggling. How a pressure sound wave the impact of a precious sound wave can have. Most of the destructiveness of an atomic bomb going off in the atmosphere, at a certain distance above ground, is purely the shock wave that emanates across the ground. I haven't seen Oppenheimer yet. I've got to get around to getting that to see that. Anyway, it was interesting. I was in the bathroom. I wasn't on the loo, but I'd just come back from watching the soccer match, which I was quite excited. Go Matildas! I hope they get it tomorrow. All right, thanks, Greg. Graham. Across to you there, Jack. VK3TJS, VK3EKH.
VK3KH, VK3TJS in Shepparton. Thanks very much, Clint. And what a lovely broadcast. And quality-wise, it was pretty much 30 over all the time. So excellent. And Graham's coming here like a sonic boom with 20 over. So it's great. No, I didn't hear anything in Shepparton. I just found out, from the reports and everything afterwards. But would have been interesting to hear it at least, see it. But as far as the pens, I've just counted mine, and there's 6 on the desk here, and there's now everyone in the house that wants a pen. They know where they are, and they just grab one, and they disappear. So I'm just making sure I've got enough here. And quite often you grab the pen and it doesn't write, so there's a choice at least. So thanks very much for the broadcast, and thank you very much for all you do, and interesting stuff. And I hope everyone's got a good weekend. Sunny, hopefully, and with the better weather. VK3KH, this is VK3TJS. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. VK3TJS, VK3EKH returning. Very good, excellent. Good signal here too. A good solid 20 over. So I'm just taking a quick look at the ionospheric chart here. In real time, more or less, and I can see that basically 3 to 4 megs is being served very well at the moment on most of the bottom part of Australia. So I should be getting good signals out across to Perth. I'd say. Anyway, all right, thanks, Jack. And I look, if I had been inside in the lounge room with the TV on, I don't think I would have heard anything either. And that was definitely a distinctive sound. So I'm glad I heard that. Just wish I had seen it going over. Anyway, and it's like these constellations, these mega constellations that they launch when SpaceX launches 30 of these new satellites. I often hear people saying to me, "Oh, I looked up in the sky this morning before I got into the car. There was all these satellites in a line going across, and it's SpaceX's satellites." Now I've yet to see that. I've yet to see a train of satellites going across the sky before they get repositioned or positioned into their new positions. Anyway, thanks, Jack. Yes, have a good weekend too. Martin, VK7JAH. Have a say, mate. VK3EKH.
VK3EKH, VK7JH. Yes, evening, Clint. Good broadcast tonight. Signals aren't too bad down here. A little bit of noise. You're a little bit lower than normal, but still definitely very clear and very readable. Good broadcast. Thank you very much. Very interesting stuff. And as I said, not too bad down here in terms of conditions. We're a little bit cool ourselves, although I'd have to say if it had cooler than average winter, I think ours has been a little warmer than normal. So not as many frosts down here as usual. But anyway, nevertheless, good conditions. I hear there was a rather big coronal mass ejection towards us on Monday. I have to say I haven't seen an aurora in probably about 2.5, 3 weeks. And that was only a fairly low-level one. So it's actually been surprisingly quiet down here, considering from my point of view anyway, considering the overall conditions, solar conditions out there. So it'll be interesting to see how it all moves forward. Just as a general comment, I'm running the Luxon Planet Berrymount Sunday. We've just had a major upgrade and now have DigiStar 7. This will be my first time running it. It'll be quite exciting, and I'm quite looking forward to it. VK3 EKH, VK7JH, over.
VK7JH, VK3 EKH, very good. That sounds like it'll be a bit of fun. So I wish you luck on that. Hope you might get a few people in to take a look at things as well. How that's all coming along. So excellent stuff. You should take a couple of pictures too of that and send us across so I can see how it all looks. But yeah, thanks, Martin. And looking at Timothy Scove's solar report from last week, she does report on some of these X-class solar flares that occurred over the last few days. So certainly the last 5 days has been definitely some interesting activity going on. I just wish I had a Radio Jove receiver running. A Radio Jove receiver is tuned to around 20.1 megahertz for listening to decametric emissions from Jupiter, but they make great solar flare receivers. And it's this sort of activity right now that I'd be looking at a rolling chart on the screen of the noise floor at 20 megs and waiting for a solar flare to hit the antenna. It's a magnificent thing to see, and if you've got the sound turned up as well, the sound of a solar flare is also mind-boggling, but that's another story. Anyway, thanks, Martin. All right, across to you there, Steve. VK3SPX, VK3 EKH.
VK3 EKH, this is VK3SPX. Yes, good one, Clint. I looked at a movie about a week ago about a solar flare that caused havoc and brought down power grids all over the place. This is an English movie. I'm trying to figure out what it was called, but I can't figure it out. There seems to be a few have been on the same theme, but that would be quite amazing if we had a carriage into vent type flare, wouldn't it? Maybe some of our amateur radio operators actually get a little bit more attention and maybe would be useful in that circumstance. What else? So it was. I missed that re-entry. That it would have been good to hear that. I was up in Barringup, so too far away. I think it was nearly over Melbourne, but must have been quite amazing to actually hear that, Clint. So that's a really good one. A good capture, that one. And the other thing, of course, all this debris in orbit. It's just amazing, isn't it? I wonder if, this Kessler syndrome supposedly might happen when these pieces all start banging into one another and creating even more pieces, which create more collisions, and it just goes on and just chain reaction, and then pretty well the whole orbit is just filled up with junk, and you can't get through without being hit by something. And I just wonder if we're not really gone past the tipping point of that already. So it's a bit of a worry, isn't it? Anyway, never mind. There we go. Okay, thanks, Clint. See you again next week. VK3 EKH, this is VK3SPX.
No worries, Steve. VK3SPX, VK3 EKH. Yeah, look, I suppose you could think that we're probably have reached this tipping point, but no, I think it's still to happen. As this article I was reading out, there's there's at least another 2 or 3 companies that want to launch their satellites into low Earth orbit. So it's still to peak. The number of satellites that are going to ultimately be launched is really just going to clutter up the low Earth orbit situation. Of course, the International Space Station hovers around 400 kilometres above the Earth, so it's a very fine layer of where the International Space Station orbits as to where all these other satellites are going to orbit. So once the operators deorbit these satellites after 5 years, or in fact all this manoeuvring that goes on, and this is the other thing. This is the other part of the equation. wasn't aware until reading the particular article of the amount of manoeuvres that have to go on with these satellites to keep them, from hitting each other. I would have thought the positioning arrangement would have been better than that, but it's rather amazing. I think there's going to be worse situation. I think it's going to get worse, and there's going to be really some really bad collisions occur before it gets any better. Hopefully the International Space Station won't be affected by it, but it's making me think of the film Gravity with Sandra Bullock now, because the whole beginning part of that film is on the premise of a satellite being destroyed, and the debris field circling Earth every 90 minutes, and it completely takes out the space station. Amazing special effects, really, really amazing special effects. But good old Sandra Bullock managed to save the day. Well, not quite, but she saved herself at least. I love films like that. Anyway, be interested to know what that movie was too. If you can think about that, you can just send us a quick email. All right, it's now across to Greg. VK3 Delta X-ray at home, I suspect. VK3 EKH.
Yeah, good evening, Clint. VK3 EKH, VK3 Delta X-ray, and I certainly am at home, mate. And you're at 20 to 30 hours a night. Signals are excellent. I've heard everyone. Good evening to everybody that's checked in. And good broadcast. I come in fairly late, like Graham. Anyway, I've heard the majority of it there, Clint. Good broadcast, and as you normally do. So it's all been pretty good. Had a bit of a problem with this radio. We had it up at the wall, up at the men's shed, and anyway, not sure what happened, don't know. Anyway, brought it back here, it wouldn't work, so anyway, here today I sort of had a bit of a look around, and anyway, it's working again. It's Nikon 775 Delta DSP. Quite an old radio, but quite a good one. Anyway, thanks for running the net there, Clint, and I'll catch up with you all again next week. VK3 EKH for the net. VK3 Delta X-ray, Greg and Warrnambool. Checking in and checking out. 73's Clint, and great job, mate.
Good on you, Greg. VK3 Delta X-ray, VK3 EKH returning. Thank you very much, Lisa. And I'm glad to hear the radio decided to work for you. Don't you hate these modern bits of equipment that that you worry when they start to play up on you? You do worry a little bit about whether it's repairable or whether that's it. And I've got 2 wirelesses here that definitely need to be looked at the my other Pro 3, Icon Pro 3. I still haven't located the problem on that, but it sits on the bench over there with the covers unscrewed. And my TS2000, which you can, if you're looking at the video here, just over on my shoulder, just up there. I mean, it's basically working, but for some reason the PLL drops out on 2 meters and now drops out on 70 centimeters. So I'm not sure the reason for that, but it needs investigation. I hope it's not nothing too critical. But these things are just a real hassle sometimes. Anyway, thanks, Greg. And a good signal from you too, from the home station. Always a much better signal. Cross to Peter, VK3BSF, VK3EKH.
Thanks, Clint. VK3BSF returning. All good. Good to hear about the log jam of satellites in space. Perhaps we'll get radio reports of where they're coming down, and put your steel hat on. It's headed your way. The sonic boom, yes, I heard that. My grandson was standing in the bedroom and he heard the window shake, and I heard the window shake. And and a bit of a bang. I just went back to sleep. I thought, oh yeah, it's another Friday, whatever it was. I think it was a Friday night in Narre, just another night. But I missed it. I missed the sight. Someone was handy. Everyone's got an iPhone with a camera switched on, and remarkable that it was captured. Good picture too. I tried to get on last week, and I called and wondering why I wasn't getting out, and I found out I was switched on PSK, and it must have thrown me bloody 10 kc or something off, or a couple of kc off. So that's the trouble with the digital rigs. You set it up for one digital thing and you forget to switch it over. I missed Tabitha tonight. I missed her last week. I wasn't able to get on. I didn't hear her this week because she wasn't on. Okay then, the Gravity, I've seen that. I love that movie. I think I've seen it 3 times, and Sandra Bullock saves the day. It was amazing. Amazing. It was so real. Her spacecraft got smashed. She jumped in the escape vehicle. She went to the other, the Japanese thingo, and that was no good. And I think she came down in the Chinese pod. And she must have practiced somewhere because everything was written in Chinese, but she seemed to know which button to press. Okay, Clint, good to see you. Put it back and catch you next week. VK3 BSF.
Yeah, no, thanks, Pete. Yeah, we can't lose Sandra Bullock. She's still got plenty of good movies in her to make. So I'm a bit of a Bullock fan. In fact, if I'm not sure if you are watching the video, but I've got a poster up here somewhere of Sandra. Let me see if I can bring her in shot here on this camera. There she is. There's good old Sandra Bullock in a picture that I've got there. I can probably zoom in on her. Oop, there she is. Good old Sandra in a very Come Heather outfit. Yeah, so that's a pretty decent shot, isn't it? But that's taken around about the time of she did Speed with Keanu Reeves. That was another fantastic movie. But yeah, that's a fantastic photograph there of the Parkes radio dish. So that's the reason why I've got the camera on it, is because it's the Parkes radio dish. You can see there. You can see the dish, can't you? That's the picture there, right in the middle of the screen. The dish is what I'm focused on at the moment. All right, back to me. Oh my goodness me, that's too close. Where's my zoom again? God, there she goes, right out. Perfect stuff. That's where it should be. Oh, it's really showing how messy my shack is. Anyway, all right. You can if you missed that, you can just rewind the tape on YouTube, and you'll catch up with all that just now. All right, Pete, thanks very much. I wondered why we didn't hear you last week, I must admit. In taking the call signs down, I thought, oh, Peter's not there. Oh, well, there it is. I didn't think it would take too long before they wandered off. Yes, those digital modes will always do it. Anyway, all right, now I think there's one other station there that I didn't catch. So is there anybody else, VK3 EKH, listening?
VK3 Alpha Charlie Zulu.
Alpha Charlie Zulu. I knew there'd be one more in there. That's also Peter. Go ahead, mate.
Yeah, VK3 EKH in the group VK3ACZ. Good evening, Clint and everybody. Clint, add my name to the list of people who saw the spacecraft. I had just left the Sherbrooke Radio Club Monday night meeting, and I was walking home and had just turned south and saw the incredible flight in the sky. Now, it was at least 2 full moons wide and 45 degrees long or so, heading from the west to the southeast. Curiously for me, I heard nothing. Mind you, there was a suburban train that went through, and I might have mistaken any noise for that. But I knew straight away it wasn't extraterrestrial, and promised not to laugh at me, but I actually worried for a while that it could have been the International Space Station coming to grief. But anyway, as I said, it was I definitely knew it wasn't extraterrestrial, and what a thrill. I've never seen anything like that. I believe when the ISS dumped its water supplies so it can give off a spectacular looking sight. But yeah, this was something else, Clint. I've seen Elon Musk satellites and nothing compares to that. But anyway, thank you for your broadcast, and so pleased to get in to say g'day. VK3EKH 73 Clint, VK3ACZ.
Yeah, good on you, Peter. VK3ACZ, VK3EKH. Thanks for calling in, and also listening to being also a witness of the entry too. Look, you can easily imagine how a lot of people that would see that would think other things other than a bit of space junk re-entering. But it was Monday night. Yeah, Monday night. Or about, apparently the sonic boom registered on seismographs, and I've been meaning to try and find a chart that shows this impact because if I can locate, I must do that. If I can locate a seismograph of the impact time, that will give you a pretty accurate time of when it actually occurred. Because I know it was somewhere between 11:30 and 12 o'clock, but I'm not too sure when. And when you hear the reports like the following day on the radio, they were saying, somewhere about around midnight, but they don't give you an exact time. Certainly the clue as to a bit of space junk was the fact that there were a variety of colours in the breakup. Because if it had been a chunk of asteroid or some large meteorite or meteor that had started to burn up, there's usually a distinctive colour that's given off. Chemical analysis type thing is very typical for celestial objects that enter the atmosphere. But because this is man-made junk, there's different metals being burned, there's plastics being burned, and they all give off their particular heat signatures and colours. So space junk. It was interesting that Peter, VK3BSF, pointed out that the sound was enough to rattle windows. That's pretty significant. It's fairly significant for that. So pretty amazing. But I would have liked to have seen it. But I have. There's this, you, as you say, so many people had their video cameras ready to capture this. So it's amazing how we have all these cameras around to capture the evidence. All right, thanks, Peter. And I think that's about it. There's no other stations wishing to call in.
It was 11:56, Clint.
Victor Kilo 3, Kilo Italy Sierra.
Okay, 11:56. Fantastic. All right, just writing that down. G'day, Andrew, VK3KIS. Good signal from you, mate. Have a say.
VK3EKH, VK3EKIS, good evening, Clint. I'm running my TS2000, and sorry to hear that yours, the PLL's acting up. I had this rig in for the filter problems a few years ago, and I haven't quite been happy with the rig. Just not getting out, so I don't know if it's the rig or the antenna, but be that as it may. And as far as the debris coming in, of course, I had just come inside, and the TV was going, so I didn't hear it and I didn't see the thing. So I'm very disappointed with that, and I do try and get to see the SpaceLink satellites. I know you hate the satellites, but they seem to be here to stay for a while. Anyway, back to you, VK3EKH, VK3KIS, 73, mate.
Thanks, Andrew. VK3KIS, VK3EKH returning. Yeah, good signal from you, Andrew. Normally you're always a little bit on the difficult side, given that you're not that far away from me. But no, you're good 20 over 9, so you're Your antenna is working fine tonight. Not a problem at all. Good signal indeed. And yes, look, I think there's just going to be more and more of this stuff re-entering the atmosphere. I know that the operators of these satellites try to, if something had to, if an object had to be brought down, it's usually they usually try to aim for over the ocean, so there's no potential risk of any damage if any debris hits the ground. And they seem to think that this debris field, that if any parts did hit the ground, it would have been over Bass Strait, over that part of the ocean. There was some reports initially that there were some impacts reported at least, but I think they were exaggerating a bit. Certainly, nothing's come to light anyway. But I wouldn't be surprised if, as the report that I was reading out earlier indicates, that it's only on the increase now, that we'll get further debris break up in the atmosphere, and it's the heavy bits that will get through. Stuff that's 8 tons worth of metal that will not entirely all burn up. That's the stuff that will still get through. Anyway, we'll just keep an eye on this and see how it goes. Anyway, thanks, Andrew, calling in. A good signal from you. If that's it, I shall conclude transmissions for tonight. Thanks, everybody, for calling in. It was a good list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stations. And all the folks there on the Discord channel, thank you very much, Lee, for calling in. And for the couple of emails there too. Excellent stuff. All right, we'll be here next Friday. It's I think it's the week after next week. Let me just check the calendar. It's the 18th next week. So yeah, in 2 weeks' time, on the 25th of April, on the 25th of August, 25th and 26th, but particularly in my case, the 25th of August, I won't have any session tonight on that night. So I'll be here on the 18th next Friday for sure. This is VK3 Echo Kilo Hotel, the official station of the Astronomical Society of Victoria, on behalf of concluding transmissions tonight. Thank you for watching and listening and being there, and we'll be back next Friday to do it all again with some new news and hopefully a report from Timothy and anything else that will tickle your boat. And all the best of luck to the Matildas tomorrow in the football game. I just hope they get through. I really do. This is VK3 EKH with VK3CSJ on the microphone, concluding transmissions on 3541 and elsewhere. Cheers, everyone.
VK3CSJ, Bebe Clint, VK3GL.
Yes, Graham. Well, the aim is to get back downstairs and kick my slippers off and relax a bit. Watch the latest episode of Star Trek New Strange New Worlds, which I think is the last episode for this season. I've been really enjoying it. But anyway, is there anything you particularly wish to impart?
VK3GL, very good. And okay on wanting to go downstairs. Oh, well, fair enough. Look, I probably won't hang around long anyway, on account that I'm not working tonight anyway, and I've sort of had enough for the day anyway. So there we be. I noted that you'd watched the Matildas game the other night, which is like probably what a lot of us did. It was a good game. It was really, really good. As much as I guess the result was a 2-0 result, it was a competitive game. It could have gone either way, really. on the countdown for the end of month. I think Alison said something tonight that we'd be this time in 3 weeks we'll be pretty much ready to touch down in London. So certainly looking forward to that. That's for sure. And I'm just trying to get the last few bits and pieces organised for the trip. I've got to organise some antennas. The Comet antenna system and a mobile base, and I'll take one of the ICOM 706s with me on the trip. I'll put that in luggage and see how we go from there. I sort of was toying with the idea whether or not I should put it in my carry-on luggage. That I thought, if I get in, I'd probably be better in my main luggage rather than the carry-on, because it's got to go through airport scanners and stuff like that, which is a bit of a pain. Now, you had a really, really good signal tonight too, Clint. You've been constantly 30, peaking sometimes 40 over 9. And everyone who came up tonight and did a check-in, they were also really, really good signals. So band's in pretty good shape. All right, back over to you. And I had a pretty good week at work, etc. And one thing you do need to sort out is that radio for your car. Notable absence in the afternoon of conversation on the repeater. You, Dennis, or whoever else might pop up on there. It's all been very quiet. VK3 CSJ, VK3 GL.
VK3GL, VK3 CSJ. Yes, I don't know whether I'll get around to looking at that this weekend. I've been in the process of trying to tidy up downstairs. I've relocated the Telefunken in a different part of the room downstairs, which I'm trying to actually bring everything up here. Not the Telefunken, and I can't bring that up here, but I gather you're watching YouTube, but over my shoulder here you can see this brown box just here. That's the Optimod AM processor thingy, and that up until just a few days ago has been part of the audio system for the Telefunken. So I'd have the Sennheiser microphone going through that little 5-channel mixer that I got from you, going into the input of this thing, and then the output of that going straight into the transmitter. So I've repositioned the transmitter so it's just below where that rack is in the far corner over here. Straight down below that is where the Telefunken transmitter is, and the PTT is the PTT for the transmitter is this wire here. So I've got to put a switch on that so that I can turn the transmitter off remotely with this wire. And just behind me is the audio lead coming up, which is going to attach to that Optimod device. I've got to do that tomorrow. I've got to do some muck around with that all tomorrow, because I do the WI broadcast on 160 Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, 1825, and elsewhere. So must get that all sorted out tomorrow at some stage. I've got to work out where I'm going to put this thing at the moment. So there's a bit of mucking around going to occur tomorrow afternoon up here. Okay. What else did you say? Okay, on the pending holiday trip coming up. I hope it's a good time for you up there, because it's the weather patterns for the northern hemisphere at the moment aren't really good for holidaying at the moment. So hopefully by the time you get across there, the weather might cool off a bit. Not that it's going to be too much of an issue, because we're all pretty familiar with the hot weather here. So it's some of those northern hemisphere people, like the Englanders, that aren't really comfortable with 30-degree heat. But that's another story. Anyway, I'm sure you'll have a great time. What else? Radios. Yeah, well, I've got to do something about that. I'll like I say, I'm in the process of tidying up downstairs, so I'm looking at all these other dual band radios that I've got lingering around, and trying to work out what I could put in the car. In fact, I'm thinking about putting the 706 in the car. Unfortunately, I can't use the HF side of it because I don't have any, because it's a blasted Subaru with a tailgate. There's no real appropriate area for a 9-foot steel whip, unless I've got a bull bar. So that's going to have to wait. But at least with the 706 already fitted, I can at least come up on 70 and 2 meters. So I must try and do that. All right, I'm almost falling apart here. I had today off work. I wasn't exactly 100% early this morning. I really didn't start to feel better until about 10 o'clock. But I don't know whether it was something I ate or whether it's too many late nights. I don't know. But I sat on, excuse me, I sat on the end of the bed this morning, and I'm thinking, it's 10 minutes to 7 and I already should be in the car by now. So I sent a message to both my supervisors, and they said, yeah, no worries. So it's been a slow day, but I did manage to do one thing actually this afternoon. I've got a little Morse ID device. Every 10 minutes it transmits my Morse ID for the broadcast, the WI broadcast on Sunday morning. And I feed that output of that little device into the mixer. Well, that's just been a floating circuit board and a floating 9-volt battery, and it's just been floating. Potentially, shorts could occur. So I did buy a little instrument case for it, a little Eddystone type case for this board to fit in, and a 9-volt battery. It's very tight, I must admit, but I managed to get it in there. So I did that today. So that's one little job done, and I can now just flick a switch and take the audio out into the mixer, and I've got an ID that runs every 10 minutes, which is cool. And I've got an audio module too, so I'm thinking about using an audio voice ID thing as well, which could be interesting. So somewhere in all that, I'll have a look at what I can put in the car that I can at least get working, and on the VHF UHF side of things. All right, Mr. Lewis, I'll leave you with it for the time being, and yeah, we'll try and catch up at some stage at some point. VK3 GL in Bunyip, VK3CSJ, Minari Warren South.
Okay, VK3CSJ, VK3GL. Yes, okay, Clint, all noted, and
There was something else I was going to talk about.
Busy enough with bits and pieces there on the home front, trying to get things a little tidied up, and okay on not going to work today. I guess you hadn't been down to Leongatha and had some mushrooms or anything like that. I don't think you would have done that. Oh dear, isn't that a bit of a mystery? Just a quick question then. This voice, this Morse code ID that you've been talking about, and then you mentioned about a voice one. Is the voice one something that you can record into, or is it a robotic voice that you new program. I'm just interested in whether or not it's something you record a message and then you put it onto a memory chip and then it just plays back. And what it is that you're talking about, because, and the reason that I'm asking is because I've been asked to provide a voice announcement on the CB repeater, which is up in the high country, sort of out of Maui. It's sponsored by the local fire brigade, and they constantly have issues on the weekends with people that go up the high country and cause interference and stuff on the repeater. So I was thinking that if we had a message service that popped up every 30 minutes or so and just brought up an announcement, that would discourage the issues that they've got, or at least be some way of informing people of the fact that there's a repeater around. Because what they're finding is that there's people that don't understand how a repeater works, and they come up there and they either talk on channel 1 on the output, or they talk on 31 on the input, not knowing that they're keying up a repeater, or they're talking on the channels in between now that are part of that 80 channel. Because the repeater's 25 kilohertz receiver, there's someone who's local talking on a channel that's in between, then that causes the thing to sort of chop it, open and close and that sort of thing. So that, look, anyway, long story short, that's what the thought has been to do something like that, have an announcement and then have it on the timed circuit. So I'd be interested to know what it is, maybe where you got it and what it is that you're trying to come up with there, Clint, before you go over.
Yes, roger that. VK3GL, VK3CSJ. Well, I'll send you the link to the website. That's probably the easiest thing to do, because for starters, the Morse ID device is mainly designed for a repeater, to be wired into a repeater, because it's got all the functionalities that you would associate with repeater use. And the voice unit, I think, is the same deal. It's a voice module that would be attached to your CW ID, or I'm not too sure if it's a standalone unit or whether it connects with the CW unit. I think it's a standalone unit that this guy makes. But because I'm now doing the WI broadcast Sunday morning on 160, the request was asked of me to make sure that I have an ID every 10 minutes, sort of thing. So I just typed in on good old Google Morse ID, and there was a plethora of things that came through, but there was one that I focused on, and I'll send you the link. So, but if you want to just wait 30 seconds, I can go downstairs and come upstairs with the little FM module and show you on camera what it looks like. I'll stop doing that. My monitor keeps dropping off for some reason. What are you doing on me? Behave. So these devices are intended for repeater use, because I said to the guy who makes these boards and bits and pieces, that I said, look, all I'm after is something that generates Morse ID. Up until I got this little board going, I was using a website, a live a feed on a website, and I had typed in VK3CSJ and arranged it to go off every 10 minutes. So when it came to doing the WI broadcast on the Sunday morning, I had two audio programs running, one for the broadcast and one for this Morse ID. and taking the audio out, the common audio out from the laptop into the mixer. And that worked fine. That was working quite okay. But I really did want to have a standalone Morse ID thing that I could just simply feed straight into the mixer, and completely on its own, separate from the laptop. So with bringing this all up into the shack here, it means that I'm going to be running the broadcast from here as well. So that'll be good. I don't know what's going on. My computer screen keeps going off in front of me here. It keeps it keeps going black. It's just started to do it. I'm not sure why. I hope that's not a problem somewhere. And okay, on the Matildas too. I followed them. I started to follow them the week before when they played against that team. What's the country? It starts with the N. Damn it, I can't think of the country that they played with. No, N something, I can't remember. But it was the same type of game. It was just neck and neck, and well, they. I think it was 2-1. But I then watched them with the Japanese, and it was so funny because I was watching the Japan ladies trying to run the field, and I thought it's not going to work for these girls because us Aussies have got long legs and run much faster, but these little Japanese girls had short legs and they were not keeping up. And here's Australia with four. Potentially they had 5 goals, but 4 goals to none. And it's like that wasn't going to work. But tomorrow they're up against France, and they're a different kettle of fish. So it is going to be a very matched game tomorrow. It really is important for the ladies to get at least 2 goals very quickly in the beginning. It's exactly like how the French did it on Tuesday last Monday. They within 19 minutes of that game, they had clocked up 2 goals, and it made it almost an impossibility for the other team to catch up. It basically did. So I'm not interested in soccer. I've always said, how can you watch for 90 minutes a game that ends up with a score that's often 0-0 or 0-1? What is that? But in watching the Matildas playing these last two games now, I can see that the skill it is to prevent the other team from getting a goal for a start. Not to get the other team just doesn't get a goal, but at the same time you've got to try and get that ball right through into your net to get a goal. And of course, there's no hands involved. It's all kicking or using your head or your chest and bumping it. But it's a skill, and it requires timing. It really is. It's just timing to get that ball into the net. And it was really interesting because that first goal the girls got on Monday went right through the legs of the goalkeeper for the other team. It was so funny. It just went right between her legs into the net. But when the second goal, I was cleaning up my bench downstairs. I was getting all these bits of paper that I was about to throw out in the recycling bin, and I was holding on to all this paper and watching this. And when that second goal came through, I just threw everything up into the air, and poor old Kiska, my little pussycat, she thought I was yelling at her. She did the spread eagle thing on the couch, but So yeah, 75,000 in that stadium that night, and they reckon the TV audience was just as huge. So yeah, I don't want to see a public holiday either. I mean, there is absolutely no point to make a public holiday out of that. Really, I mean, if that was the case, why didn't they make a public holiday when the America's Cup was won back in 1983 when we had Bob Hawke as Prime Minister? That, there was no consideration then to make a public holiday, so there's no consideration for it now. All right, VK3GL, VK3CSJ.
Yeah, okay, Clint, VK3CSJ, VK3GL. All right, no problems at all noted. Look, don't worry about going downstairs and grabbing the unit. Maybe take a photo of it and send it to me if you want to, but the link should be sufficient for me to have a look at what it is. That's for sure. I wonder whether you went to Kmart and got an on-air light too. Oh dear.
It's too bright.
A bit of a run on those. That's for sure. They're actually quite good in the shack, that's for sure. Okay, on the Matildas, yeah, it's all very good. I'll be interested to see what happens tomorrow night, that's for sure. As I said, good for the sport. And as far as soccer's concerned, yeah, I do hear what you say about, that, like it's not. Look, I suppose it's no different to hockey or something like that. Mind you, if it was hockey, probably more goals are scored. Ice hockey, there's probably more goals scored. But it's the same sort of principle anyway. The game's sort of very much similar. It's just that it was hitting the ball with your feet instead of hitting it with a stick. So, but yeah, look, it can be very skillful, that's for sure. So, I think I obviously took an interest when Mason was playing soccer. That's how I sort of ended up getting involved in it and understanding how the game worked, etc. So, all right, well, look, I'm going to disappear. Actually, I should have said something to Alison. She went to bed over an hour ago and she's working tomorrow morning. And I was sitting here when you were having it over before, and I heard these footsteps. She come down here looking for me because I think she unconsciously sort of woke up and noticed that I wasn't in bed, so she come to check on me. Maybe concerned that something might have happened. I've been nursing a sore back this week, so I don't know whether or not maybe she thought I was unable to get up or something like that. But I think I pinched last Sunday I pinched a nerve at the bottom of my back, and it's been going down the back of my left leg. Very painful to move around. It's getting better. It's certainly getting better, but Monday I could hardly move at all. Oh, geez, it was sore, like really, really sore. And you're not going to believe it, how I did it. I'll tell you, and you'll probably have a bit of a chuckle about it. But I was going out on Sunday night, and I had a wind cheater, a black wind cheater, and it had some cat fluff on it, as you do when you've got ragdoll cats. So I grabbed the lint roller out of the cupboard, and I put the wind cheater just on the table in the kitchen, and then I was using the lint roller, and I twinged my back just doing that with a lint roller. So of all things, and it's made me incapacitated this week. It's been bloody terrible. Anyway, I'm going to head off to bed anyway, and I'll catch up with you later on anyway, Clint, and all points noted. I'll look forward to the link that you send through. VK3CSJ, VK3GL.
Yeah, no worries, Graham. VK3GL, VK3CSJ. Yeah, it's the simplest things, isn't it? The usual things that we do every day, the way we bend down to pick up something, or the way we do our shoelaces on our shoes, or the simple act of getting out of a chair and twisting, in the process of standing up, that any of those subtle movements can put your back out just slightly. And if you get a nerve that gets suddenly compressed, then you know about it. You really do know about it. And I'm very conscious of the way I sit in a chair, and I know that I eventually slouch. I know that my back begins to curve, and I think, come on, straighten up your back. At work I do this all the time. At the test bench, as soon as I notice that my back begins to curve, I consciously straighten up and try to keep my spine straight. But it's just so easy for that to get lazy. And of course, the other problem is, if you are overweight, all that extra weight in the front of you is I can't remember the expression or the term, but it's like every kilogram of weight in front of you is like twice that on the spine. It's something like that. I can't quite remember how it's worded, but when you're carrying around a big gut, it's a hell of a lot of pressure on the spine, and it's another reason why it's so important to try and maintain a slim figure, at least keeping your weight in control, because it's less trauma on the spine. So the spiral staircase that I have here. One of the steps is just at the right height, that if I hold on to it with my hands like this, if you're watching YouTube 20 seconds from now, but if I hold on to the step at that, and it's just high enough where I can just get off the ground, just slightly. My feet are still basically flat-footed on the ground, but I'm able to. What I'm doing is straightening my back. And I do that very often. It's if I feel my spine needs to be cracked, like just that alignment needs to occur, I'll come up to the spiral staircase and I'll just grab hold of this step, and I'll let gravity try to straighten out my spine, and I can often hear it go, crack, 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 and I just sort of hang there as long as I can. But what I would like to do is find a place in here where I can put up a solid, because it's very hard to hold on to the step. I'm using the flat part of my fingers here to try and lift my body off the ground, and I can't do it. There's no advantage in the grip. So I'm looking to try and find a place where I can bolt a solid bar or support pipe to the wall that's just high enough that if I grab it with my both hands, comfortably grab it with my hands, but can lift myself off the ground, so I can actually hang there with my feet not just sort of touching the toes, touching the ground, sort of thing. I can do that often to straighten out the spine, which I'm sure is a good thing. I hope it's a good thing. Oh dear. Anyway, so there it is. All right, mate. I'm going to go downstairs and I'll send you this link and information, photographs, and everything I've got. And I think you'll find it's not very expensive. And I think that's exactly what you need for your CB repeater. I think, or at least I hope it will be. All right, VK3GL Bunyip, VK3CSJ.
No worries at all. VK3CSJ, VK3GL. Yeah, all noted on the back and all that sort of stuff. Yes, I know what you mean. The simplest things. The last time I ever remember doing it and it gave me this sort of grief was a number of years ago when I was still working at Coles. So I haven't been there since 2009, so it was before that. It'd be probably 18 years ago, 15, 18 years ago. At least, and I was unplugging the lead on the laptop. I just reached across to unplug it on the desk and heard this little bit
That would do it.
I was in grief for about a week. So it's bloody. I felt like I needed a walking frame the other day. Seriously, it was just. It was like after walking for a bit, and sort of as I could walk into it and walk up, I could get myself straight. I actually took the dog for a walk the other day, and after I'd done that, I felt fantastic. I thought, oh, this is all right. And then after sleeping on it again that night, it gave me buggery again the next day. Anyway, now the board, the thing that I'm looking for a repeater is going to be a standalone device. The repeater's got its own controller and everything on it. I don't want to fiddle around with that or interface to it. And part of the problem is that I don't know what sort of controller it is that's on it, so I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm just going to have a standalone radio sitting near the repeater, and something that just keys up every 30 minutes. But I've got to make it smart enough so that it doesn't key up over the top of someone else who might be using the repeater at the time. So it needs to have almost like two timers on it, one set for whatever the interval is, so let's say 30 minutes, and another one that's sampling an off-air signal that prevents it from transmitting, but then also waits for 10 or 15 seconds after the last transmission before it keys up. So one timer needs to expire completely. So in other words, that engages with the second, and if there's no activity on the repeater, then it just sends out the message. But if there is activity on the repeater, it holds off until there's a clear space of at least 15 seconds, so that enables anyone to go clear from their conversation before it keys up. So that's the sort of thing I need to come up with. And I can do that easy. I've got a UHF radio here that I'm going to donate to the system. I just need to interface into that. There we go. All right, mate. Catch up with you later on. Thanks for the words tonight there, Clint, and have a good rest of your morning. And I'm going to go clear it, hit the hay. Please get into bed, turn off the bedside lamp because it's probably still lit in the bedroom. Might be causing Alison some grief. I mean, I appreciated the fact that she come down to check on my welfare, but I felt a little bit awkward about it too, that maybe I should have said something to her before she went to bed, that I was going to perhaps pop down here for a few minutes, and then she would have known where I was. As it was, she was a bit concerned and come to see me. And then when she found that I was alright, she's probably a bit pissed off that she had to get out of bed. Well, at least it's not cold in the house at the moment. It's not freezing cold. That would have added to the aggravation. Catch you later on. VK3CSJ, VK3GL going clear.
Yes. VK3GL, VK3CSJ. Yes. Well, let's hope she wasn't upset about that, because she was only doing the right thing in getting up to find out how you were. I mean, she could have elected to have just stayed in bed and figured out everything's all right. Easily elected to do that, so she did the right thing. No reason for her to be upset for doing the right thing. All right, mate, catch you later. And I think this device will do all that. When you look at its setup, there's various timers in it that can be set for various things. So I think you'll find that you might just be able to use this device. Well, this is the Morse ID thing. How the little FM recording device can be factored into or configured into it, I'm not 100% sure. But I'll send you all the info and the website. And the guy you're dealing with is a ham overseas. And he reckons that he's made up hundreds of these devices for repeater applications around the world. So he's had no problems with the implementation of these devices. Okay, my speech centre is well and truly closing down. See you great, VK3GL, VK3CSJ.
Okay, Clint. Yeah, thanks very much, mate. All the best and catch you later on. Cheers for now, VK3GL. Now signing clear and going QRT.
See you great.
Cheers, mate.
Alrighty then, we're out of here. For those watching on YouTube, thank you for hanging in there. I know there's a few people that do view the channel there. It's either not now, but they might later. So I don't mind seeing the numbers. Otherwise, we'll be back next Friday to do it again. We'll be streaming on Sunday morning with the WI broadcast, the vision part of it. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's all there is coming up on Sunday morning, 10:30. But if you're around to listen to the 160 metre broadcast on Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, the early edition, would appreciate signal reports. This is VK3CSJ Narry Warren South, now concluding transmissions on RTV, repeater, and on the YouTube stream. Thank you for watching still.